Just a quick reminder that if you want to support Concepts and Legends, please remember to like and subscribe. And you can also show your support by using our TCG affiliate link for any and all of your magic needs by using the link you see here or below in the description. Any and all help is greatly appreciated and helps us bring you more videos like the one that is starting right now. Have you ever heard of Hans Erikson, who cluelessly sniffed flowers as his sister was eaten by a monster? Or how about the kindly stranger who invites you over and suddenly turns into a demon-possessed witch? And what about Mox Tantalite? If you answered yes to any of these, then you're going to enjoy today's interview with the artist of all these cards, Ryan Pancoast. And if you didn't, well, stick around anyway. He's really that good. Just watch.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for taking the time to do this today.
No problem. Thanks for asking me.
It's hard to approach. You have so much as far as your career goes, but I would say, what is the, kind of the Derberger question is, how did you get your start out as an artist in your earlier days, that kind of thing?
Well, if I'm being honest, I had a lot of help, because starting any art career is really, really difficult if you're trying to do it without any help. I graduated from art school, always kind of knew I wanted to be an illustrator, and graduated from art school. For the first couple of years of my career, I lived with my parents and was working out of a spare room in my dad's business. I eventually, and while I was there, I started working for Magic. So I was working for about, I want to say it took me about 3 to 4 years to get work for Magic. And then after I started working for Magic, in 2008, 2009, I met my wife, moved out. She was supporting my career for a long time because for a long time, Magic work, although it was really one of the better clients you can get, the original Magic art wasn't really worth that much. And so there was a lot of, my wife was basically supporting our whole family. And then it's only recently that, since I've been able to sell Magic art, for more and more, that I've been able to kind of help support our family. And so it's kind of a long process, but one that I'm happy that I'm where I'm at right now.
I mean, it's refreshing to hear you actually, admit to that. A lot of people would rather, I don't say a lot of people, but I think people maybe their first instinct would be to not talk about that, to maybe because they're afraid it might take away from their mystique or whatever. But I really think it is actually a forthright way to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, there's big artists there's obviously artists who are truly self-made and come from nothing, but then there's artists like the Andrew Wyeth, for instance, who was basically like incubated in a world of art and had the privilege to kind of just explore his art 24/7. And I'm more of the latter. I was very fortunate to have supportive parents and a supportive wife, and I'm glad to finally be able to kind of bring that all together.
And I read somewhere that you said that you come from an artistic family. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my artistic in a general sense, yeah. So I was never discouraged from pursuing illustration. My grandfather really liked Norman Rockwell. My dad went to art school for design. My sister's a jeweler. There's a bunch of musical talent in my family. So yeah, artistic in the general sense is my lineage.
I mean, it's great. It's and I mean, you love Norman Rockwell too. I saw online that you went for him as an English assignment, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you did your homework. Yeah, I dressed up in middle school as Norman Rockwell to do a biography of him. So then I ended up wearing a tie to and had a fake pipe to middle school, which didn't go over too well with my friends.
Right. I was gonna say, like,
in middle school,
they wouldn't let that. They wouldn't even, like, these days. That wouldn't go through.
Yeah, that's right.
But so, and it's, I mean, and so you're, but it's cool. It's nice, and you do have a very like, it seems like you have a great family life going on. So one of the things that I kind of just was curious about was your wife has posed for a few of your paintings, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
And she must have posed for Saheeli.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I saw the picture of your son, it was kind of crazy. I saw a shot of your son, and I was like, "Whoa, that looks a lot like Nahir." Or not Nahir. I was like, "Sorry, sorry, I messed up." But excuse my idiocy, Saheeli.
Yeah.
Nahir, your son does not look like Nahir.
No.
But it was crazy because it was like I saw it was almost like you captured her so well, and that you could almost see like the genealogy of it in your son. I was just like, whoa, that's crazy. I just saw.
Yeah. She has posed for quite a few. Martyrs Bond, Saheeli for sure. The most recent one from Strixhaven, the Green Dean, Kian. She posed for that one as well. You know, I think she kind of gets a little tired of me asking her to pose, but she's a good sport about it, and I try to ask other people and hire models wherever I can. But if there's a perfect or convenient job to use her, and I'll do it.
Right. So, your style of paintings. I mean, I guess one of the ones that I'm kind of fascinated by, and we'll talk about some of your favorites as far as what you love. But one of the ones I was really kind of blown away by was I don't know why the Army of the Damned is so jarring, and I think I was thinking about it. I think it's because you usually do such a wide open space in your stuff that whenever it's enclosed, that seems almost against type. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yes, I would say that's a fair assessment. I think an original Innistrad, I mean, that was a pretty early piece. That was my first or second year illustrating for Magic. So obviously my style and I think the way that my paintings look is a lot different now. But really in the original Innistrad, they were really pushing close up. They were really pushing extreme angles, try to push that horror part of Innistrad. And so, yeah, Army of the Damned is set squarely on the floor, looking up into a corner of a cottage. And I'm not even sure if they specified how many zombies there were supposed to be, but I miraculously chose 13, and that had something to do with the card. And that was, I forget if that was even in the prompt. But yeah, that was when I was working really small, and working small, you can also kind of, it kind of lends itself to more close up, more intimate kind of art.
And I like your point of view on the storytelling devices that you incorporate in your paintings, such as the kindly stranger and the demon flip. That is probably my personal favorite. I was kind of shocked when I found out it wasn't yours. I was like, sure it could have been his favorite. I mean, but
yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of that piece. I am. I really liked that assignment in general, and I was able to kind of put some storytelling devices in there that I'm pretty proud of. The demonic shadow, the kind of the strings that tie both pieces together, her staff that's flying off, the flames in the second one, which is her dropped lantern in the first. I really do like that piece. I really do. It's just that I kind of divide my career up into 3 or 4 parts, and that's kind of like the middle part of my career. Like the first part, like original Zendikar, through maybe the cons block, which I largely took off, is kind of like the first part of my career, and then return to Zendikar through maybe Ixalan is the second part of my career, and then ever since Ixalan and onwards is like the third part of my career, where I've had like very distinct, in my mind at least, styles, and that's squarely in like the second style of my career.
And what would you say your style is, if to somebody who was trying to describe it?
Well, I think my my style now, I would say, is realistic, portrait influenced, painterly illustrations. And they look a lot like my portfolio work did when I first started out. And it's been a struggle, or not a struggle, but it's been a process of getting my magic work to look like my portfolio work. So when an artist first graduates or is trying to get jobs, they have to come up with a portfolio of work to show clients before they're even hired. The portfolio that I showed Wizards when I first started out was more similar to the work now than the magic work that I did when I first started out.
Is that because you had time to really like hone in on it, or is that?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say, but I did think that painting for magic would be easier than it ended up being. And so when I first started out, I thought, oh well, I know how to paint realistically. If I just paint it, um, it'll turn out exactly like my portfolio work. Well, that wasn't the case. I wasn't working large enough. I wasn't taking enough time and care with my reference material, like the photo reference or building of models. And it's been a process to figure out that, hey, you really, really need to bear down and treat each magic piece like you would a painting for yourself. And that would be like gathering appropriate reference or designing the piece so that you can get appropriate reference. And so really it's been a struggle to get over those mental humps in my mind where I'm trying to figure out why I don't particularly like my work and where I want my work to go. And figuring that out is tough.
And what would be an example then of a piece that was, I'm always interested by naming one piece that was probably the most challenging, and then the one that it was the least challenging in a sense that it just came out start to finish super easy.
Yeah. One piece that was pretty easy actually is the one that's behind you now, the Mox Tantalite.
Really?
That one, yeah, because it was the black background. It's very simplistic.
True.
I got the perfect reference for it. I bought a little magnetite tantalite ball that I used as reference. I built the stand to photograph, and basically it was I took really good photo reference of what I needed to do. And so largely it was just copying the photo, which I'm really good at. I'm really good at just like straight, if I see a photo and I can paint it. And I'm really good with that. The more complicated stuff is really where I kind of struggle. So Army of the Damned certainly was a challenging piece for me at the time. I would have approached it much differently now. A lot of pieces that involve a lot of architecture. I can't think one off the top of my head right now, but yeah, and early in my career, I was getting a lot of pieces that were very difficult for me, and I think it kind of shows.
What would you have done? What would you do differently if you were doing Army of the Damned now?
I would work bigger for one. I would probably build a model of a small cottage and light it like a diorama. So I'd have like really accurate reference of what I need. And I think just working bigger and taking more care with my reference, it would have been the composition might have been pretty similar, but I think the quality of the painting probably would have been a little different just by increasing the size of the painting. I mean, that's an 11 by 14 painting, which is about like that big. But really right now I'm working like 18 by 24 at a minimum, which is, more like that. So just by increasing the size of the canvas, I get a better feel for the paint, and it's more abstract, and it's more letting the brushwork kind of do a lot of the work instead of going in with a really tiny brush and trying to noodle in all those details.
Hans Erikson I've read that you said that it's one of your top 5 favorites that you've ever done.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Yeah, I love that piece.
And it's great. It is a great piece, but you have a big history with it in regards to, you also did Saffy, who is his sister, but I don't think they make that like all the time. It's not clear by the name, because I don't think a lot of people realize that it's like, I think it's an Icelandic thing or some sort of European, like where it's like Erikson means son of Eric, and
right.
like, so Did you like when the design for Hans was coming up? Did you because there's like the discrepancy in the story that he's supposed to be lanky and skinny, and yet your version of him he's very um bigger. I'd say
Yeah,
the word.
yeah.
What was the decision behind that? I mean, I love it as far as it looks great. It just looks so jolly. If I
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is filtered through the art directors. And so we're not, as artists, we're not required to know every part of magic lore. We don't have to, even know a whole heck of a lot. Um, but so a lot of that storyline comes through from the art directors, from this research and development, story people, through the art directors to us. So really, I want to like, because the interesting part about that is that Saffy was illustrated first back in 2017. They wanted an illustration of Saffy, which had, Chris Moeller had already painted her, and so I was trying to kind of stick with his design. And they said, oh well, if you wanted to paint her companion in the background running away, that'd be great too. And I said, well, I know Hans is a big part of, I know it's one of Mark Rosewater's, one of his favorite flavor texts, so I can't resist not putting him in. And so I did. And then about a year or maybe 9 months later, they came back and asked me to illustrate Hans. And Hans was described in the art description as being like a bigger guy with a big beard. And so really, I just took their description and went with that, because really, there's so much stuff out there in terms of magic story and magic lore that we can't keep track of it all.
Right.
and it's art, so it can be malleable and changeable.
And is it true that that Saffy wasn't originally in the prompt and that you inserted her in as well?
Yeah, Saffy did not need to be in the prompt, but I couldn't not let that happen. Because like how could you not,
I mean, yeah, I feel so bad for her too, because I mean, Hans just seems to not be aware that anything's happening ever, because I hear in the lore apparently he goes back to town and gets more people killed and he survives, and it's like, oh, yikes. I feel like Saffy might have been a little more useful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if the story continues, if they continue this, I would be happy to illustrate the rest of the story, however it ends.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it's just all like Hans bringing the Lurgoy to whomever, and just him seemingly getting out unscathed. But that's for another day. With as far as like other ones of your favorites, I'm curious to know what your top fives are of pieces that you've done.
Pieces that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because most of my favorites are not, I want to say crowd favorites, generally. But probably my favorite painting that I've ever done for Magic is Nikia of the Old Ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think just everything was just working in that painting. Everything turned out exactly how I wanted it to look, and that doesn't usually happen. Some other favorites are Mox Tantalite, Hans. I had to choose another one. I might say Haktos would be up there, and Zimone, the most recent one from Strixhaven.
Yeah. Now, I know that I'd read that you had created Linden from Eldraine completely from scratch. I was curious. How involved were you with Zimone?
It was a very kind of a similar experience where they had the basic outline of who this character is supposed to be. She's a 10 or 11 black girl with big bushy hair and big glasses, in Quandrix, a school uniform, and that was kind of like the basic framework. And then so I found a model that would be a perfect fit for that, and kind of designed her outfit largely based on the concept work that was given to me from Magic or from Wizards of the Quandrix school. It was some early concepts of those outfits. So I had three kind of examples of Quandrix outfits to choose from, and I kind of used that and adjusted it slightly to make it look more like a traditional school uniform, and then that combined with my choice of model kind of merged into that character. The same thing happened with Linden, was where I was given examples of Arndale knights and royalty and had to kind of like extrapolate from that and make it even more grand.
How do you make how do the costumes come about? Is that something that you have to think of yourself? I know that Sarah Winters has a background in fashion, and I read that you are a big fan of is it Alexander McQueen's stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only book I have of fashion. I mean, I wish I had more art books, but there's only so many you can have. But the Alexander McQueen retrospective is a really useful one to kind of get ideas for fashion, because that's often what we're doing is being fashion designers for a fictional plane. So yeah, I take a lot of inspiration from actual haute couture fashion and try to apply that to the Magic style.
Yeah, his stuff is pretty crazy. It's like, I mean, it's almost unbelievable that it could like exist in any form. It's almost so out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I take a lot of inspiration from his silhouettes and some of the more functional pieces and textures. But not only him, of course, but it's the only book that I physically have of fashion designers. But I'm also, when I do searches on the internet for inspiration, I do a lot of searching the most recent haute couture fashion shows, because they really do give a good idea about how clothes are supposed to fit the human form, or how they can fit the human form, and kind of make it more than it is, where shoulders can kind of puff out and where they're more narrow. And it's really, really useful information from someone that doesn't have, like me, that doesn't have a fashion background.
When did you start posing with your paintings? Because that's a lot of fun, and I don't see any other artists doing that kind of thing. Where, I mean, a lot of them are even almost I think camera shy, and then you are very much in front of the camera and imitating the pieces that you've done. What brought that about?
Well, when I started really selling my work online, my agent who sells my work, Mike Lindemann, always likes to have a picture of the art with the artist, or the piece of the art with something around it to give it context in terms of size, color, and texture. And so I was just doing like kind of poses. I was just standing with my paintings at first, but then at Ranger Captain of Eos, I stuck a bird on my shoulder and put a lion toy in my pocket. And ever since then, it's been kind of like a one-upsmanship with myself to try to make it, make each time I pose with a piece of artwork to make it even more or even funnier. Yeah, now I'm kind of stuck doing it.
You're in trouble.
Because I got to keep thinking of good ideas. But I think it's fun for people, and it's fun for me, and it's and that's really, if you're not having at least a little bit of fun in this industry, in creating art, then what's the point if you're not having just a little bit of fun?
How long did it take to get that ink off your face from the most recent one?
Oh, that was just basic face paint. So it did get everywhere in the sink, but it didn't take too long to get off.
I was gonna say, like, whoever did it, I mean, I don't know, whoever applied it did a good job, because I mean, I'm assuming, yeah. Well, see, there you go. There's a painter for you. But like, I also was like, at the same time, I'm like, well, would he do that? And would it be hard to do? I mean, because you basically, I mean, painting on your own face, I guess I don't know. I mean, are all painters like good at makeup? Is that a thing?
Oh,
Is that
I
something?
don't know how, I don't know how to do makeup. I assume like if I learned how, I'd be able to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, and I wasn't painting anything detailed or realistic. It was just, paint splatter, or ink splatter.
It was
And
pretty good. It was pretty good. I
thanks.
mean, like I was like, wow, that's really like angled. It really looks like ink that just goes like on you.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the motion was there and everything.
I do know how to paint an ink splatter.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe I had to sound it out, you see, because like I just realized that as I was asking the question, I was like, oh yeah, he's a painter. So, but
But if I was trying to make myself look good with makeup, I probably wouldn't be able to figure it out.
see, I mean, I think now I'm gonna call it. I think everybody who does painting must like inherently be good at makeup. Like, you should just learn that because you'll be good at it, and then your wife will never be mad at you
Side work.
having to do like you could do her makeup for an event, and she'd be like happy to post for you.
That's right.
So I saw in one picture you were playing Magic with your son. How long have you been playing Magic, and how is that working out?
Well, I didn't really learn until I want to say 2015, 2016. Um, Before then, I was just relying on the art directors to kind of figure out what I was supposed to paint. And largely that's, and some of the things are easy to figure out, like something with flying has to have wings. Um, but I kind of wanted to learn what the game was all about. So I started with the Duels of the Planeswalkers app at first, and kind of did their tutorial. And ever since then, I I found it was really fun and addictive, and I think it's broadened um, uh, my views on the game, and it's given me better ideas about how to approach pieces. Um, like because they don't really give us a lot of mechanics or any mechanics in our art descriptions, but some of the things we can kind of infer, like, oh, this is going to have um, at least death touch or flying, even if we don't know that ourselves, even if they don't give us that information. But we can kind of infer that, and that kind of makes for a better piece if you can kind of work those details in such a way and understand where the art directors are coming from. So I learned on Duels of the Planeswalkers, and recently started playing again since Arena came out on for Mac and for iOS. I recently started playing, now I just need somebody to play a physical game with, and so I'm trying to teach my son how to play.
You don't do any of the online versions of it where you play it with people with your webcam?
No, no. I mean, I really don't have that much time. The most time I have is just popping on Arena and
Right.
like playing a couple rounds. But yeah, really involved, like because when you're playing in person, obviously it takes a little longer to set up and to actually play the game. And I'm just looking for like a way to kind of relax or mindlessly kind of play something for a little bit,
Mm-hmm. What do you play? What's your favorite preferred like deck on Arena?
Right now, I'm doing a green black deck that's kind of based in elves at first, but then kind of moves into bigger creatures. And so it's and yeah, I'm not really good, but but that's the deck that's the most fun for me to play so far.
Have you ever had a moment where you did a win con with like something that involved one of your cards that you painted? Has that ever happened?
No, I tried to do that. So I tried to design the deck around my saga piece from Kaldheim, Harold Unites the Elves, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I started with that, and then kind of built a deck around that, even though it really doesn't come into play too often. That's what
I got you. Yeah, no, I totally do that too. I will build decks that are completely based off of like say paintings that I like or the story of Magic, and I don't care if I lose.
yeah, right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's for the art, man.
Yeah, and if I was on like Magic Online, I'd build the whole deck with just cards of Illustrated. But I mean, you can't do that. So,
So what would be this? I'm curious as to a couple of things. one of them was how did you get the ancestral recall job? How did that come about? Because that's insane. That's one of the Power Nines.
Yeah, that was around that was one of the last pieces I took before I took kind of a 18-month hiatus from Magic. I just couldn't figure out why my work wasn't looking the way I wanted it to look, and needed some time off to figure that out. And Ancestral Recall was the last piece I took before I took a break from Magic during the cons block. Um, that was originally for prize painting for the Vintage Championship. So, in addition to commissioning the art, Wizards also bought the original art to give away as a trophy. And so they put it in, the large version of the card, and the trophy would be the large version of the card plus the painting. So really, it hasn't seen print, but it's on Magic Online, obviously. Yeah, the concept for it all came from the art director on that one, which was Jeremy Jarvis, and I just tried to follow through as best I could.
And another thing that I'm curious about is, how did you land the job for doing The Road by Cormac McCarthy? That's insane. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's was one of my favorite books, and so when I was asked, it seemed like, I don't know, like a luck or miracle or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the art directors at Suntop Publishing, who did The Road, had seen my work at LuxCon, and I think they've also saw it online, and saw some of my ink drawings that I was doing for a while. And they basically said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Of course." And they had another artist that they were also considering, and then they chose me and put the other artist on a different book. So yeah, it was amazing. I love that book, and I was really, really honored to be able to do it.
I was like, I mean, it has an introduction from Joyce Carol Oates. I was just like, yikes, that's a heavy hitter.
Yeah, yeah. It was really an amazing assignment, and hope I did it justice.
Well, I mean, yeah, you did it justice. But also, did you never get any feedback from McCarthy, or just anything like that?
Just that in the general sense, he's kind of tight-lipped. But in the general sense, he approved of the images and liked them generally. But I didn't get a whole lot of feedback from Cormac.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's one of those people that, like, even if he likes it, he'd just be like,
exactly. Yeah. I'm used to not getting a ton of feedback on my work. So it was fine. He has better things to do.
But I mean, at the same time, I mean, you've got a great pantheon, and now, and you're one of the people one of the very few Magic artists that has had the ability to do everything ranging from a landscape to a front facing planeswalker on a commander set. And I looking back on some of the interviews you've done, you were kind of like, oh, I'd love to get to the things. Is there anything that you haven't done now that you're hoping to try out in regards to design or anything like that with Magic?
Oh, yeah. My wish list of stuff is kind of being checked off, especially in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind a few more basic lands. That would be cool. To go back and do some of that as a change of pace. I think I've done every creature type that I've wanted to do. I haven't done a whole lot of I think I've only done one dragon, so I wouldn't mind doing another dragon. But yeah, early in my career, I was being given like a wide range of stuff to do, from landscapes and spells, and a lot of stuff that ended up being staples I didn't even realize were going to be staples at the time. But now I'm more keyed into pretty much exclusively doing portraits or portrait style paintings, and largely for legendary characters, which is fine with me. It's like right exactly where I wanted to be. I love doing portraits, and I love where I'm at now. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a few more basic lands.
I wonder, looking back, I'm like, I don't think you've done a lot of vampires. And I'm thinking, I know you can't say anything, but are you going to be, is any of your artwork going to be in the upcoming Innistrad sets coming up?
Yes, I do have work in the Innistrad sets, and yes, you're absolutely right. I haven't done any vampires. That's one of the ones that I really wanted. I really like the vampire designs on Zendikar and Innistrad, but I just haven't been assigned any of them. I even liked. I've done one dead vampire for Ripjaw Raptor.
Oh, that's
for-
right. That's right.
But yeah, I would love to do vampires, but I'm in that set, but I didn't
You
do
can't.
any vampires.
Oh, you didn't know vampires? Oh, like that's like, well, it's an exclusive. It's a disappointing exclusive, but I was like, yeah. Oh, it was like I kind of was like, oh, I'm elated and I'm crestfallen at the same time.
I'm sure there will be plenty of very, very nice illustrations of vampires.
Of course, but nothing against
me.
Yeah, but okay, well then that's it. We need to start a vampires for Pancoasts like website, and just like there are vampires in need of illustration. We need to we need to help them. Help them as much as we can. So I guess to bring things to a close, I know you said that you're busy with stuff, but is there anything that you're working on now as that you're allowed to discuss that is coming up for you, regardless of whether it's magic or not magic related?
Yeah, the really only other thing, I've been doing more work for Dungeons and Dragons, largely kind of concept work for them actually, which is new for me. But magic is still the most consistent and the main thing that I do day to day. The work really doesn't stop, and I try to produce the best work that I can, and keep getting assignments that are really fit who I am as a painter. So yeah, I'm just sticking with magic for as many pieces as I can handle. I'd be glad to take it.
And how many are kind of like looming on the horizon? At what's the approximate number?
I have quite a few unreleased paintings. Strixhaven, I did have 6 come out, so that was like eased my backlog a lot. But I have about 20, maybe 18 or 20 pieces coming out in the next year. Between what I've completed, what's coming out in the summer, all the way through what I just made, handed in yesterday. So.
Do you ever think, and just like you said, but I am curious for people who have a diverse portfolio and have been with magic for a while, do you see yourself as ever one day being an art director, or is that something you could ever be interested in doing possibly?
Possibly. Like it would be something that I would have to be in the right point in my life and career in order to do. I'm really happy being an illustrator. I love to paint. I love the problem solving of taking something written and turning it into something visual. I'm not, and being an art director seems like a lot of stress, because you have to assign like, what are hundreds of pieces of art, especially for magic, hundreds of pieces of art, and keep track of, hundreds of artists as well. And so that seems like a lot of stress. So it's not something that I'm interested in now, but certainly down the road, if I was in the right point in my life, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know you're super busy. You got a full family and you got that schedule. So I will let you go, but thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Ryan Pancoast is a peach, isn't he? Also, how great of a name is Ryan Pancoast? I think it's all the vowels. The funny thing about vowels is that you can't have a good name without them. Just ask Fibblethip. If you can find him, he's totally lost, What the hell? Has someone gotten into my percussion room? Alright, that does it. Nobody touches my gong without my permission. Hands off my gong! I'm sorry, everyone. I gotta cut this short. So until next time, I gotta scoop. The nerve of some people. Ugh.